Hey there guys, how's it going for today? It's another one of these videos that I'm just sort of throwing together just to put out there, just to quickly discuss something about the channel and some of the content that's been on the channel and is going to be on the channel or not going to be on the channel in the future and whatnot, that sort of thing. So I guess not that many people will listen to this or watch this, whatnot, whatever, because it's not really too much about anything specific or whatnot. But anyway, I do think that there are some people that do like to know what's going on and why and whatnot and all this other stuff. So, like, one of the things that I found in doing what I'm doing here is what I want to do is create things that help people. And I just sort of felt or started feeling like some of the content that I was making actually wasn't that helpful at all. Like, it's interesting or it's, perhaps a spicy take or a hot take or whatnot, some of that sort of stuff. And some of that can get those clicks, that sort of thing, whatnot, because those sorts of things sort of grab people's attention and whatnot. And sometimes you sort of fall into that trap of, it's not necessarily that I'm trying to make it in a negative way. Like one of the more recent videos was talking about Reliquary Tower. I wasn't trying to be negative in that video where I'm talking about is it that good of a card. I think when I said I'll probably put on there on the JPEG whatever on the screen, is it a bad card or whatever. But that's the thing. That's what gets a lot of people to click onto a video to go, well, is it a bad card? Or, because that is sort of what you're talking about, but it's one of those things. It does get a lot of views and a lot of clicks, but I don't want to make the actual content that's within the actual videos and whatnot that are on here negative. So I think I'm going to move away from doing that style of content because it really doesn't help anyone. Or if I'm going to do content about cards that I think see too much play or aren't as good as what people perhaps praise them to be or whatnot, whatever, I'll put them into the context of some of the videos I've done recently, like with Cultivate and Kadam's Reach and Phyrexian Arena, where I've gone, well, what's some other options? What can I replace this with? Where can I go? What would be better, and whatnot. Like some of the tips and tricks that are out there. Where can I find a cheaper, more budget version? How can I, play, a powerful card that's really going to help me? Is there any black, like Rhystic Study or whatever, things like this? Or, should I just be playing a whole bunch of sack outlets and things like that, because that's really how black draws a lot of cards, is because if you've got sack outlets and you can sack creatures and you can recur creatures and things like that. So that's really black's, wheelhouse of things. But anyway, beyond that, if you're looking at a deck and whatnot to go, okay, well, this, what can I do? And is this card that useful to me in this deck? Well, no, it's not, but then go, well, that's great, but that's not actually that useful, and it's not that helpful just to say this card is not good or this card is bad or whatever in this circumstances. It's like, yeah, that's half the battle to a degree. Like getting people to sit back and go, okay, I'm going to assess this from the perspective of like somewhat power level. And again, like, you don't have to always be power level. But again, if you are trying to build a deck that's a 7 or an 8 or a 9 or a 10 or whatever, when you're looking at some of these things, you go, well, actually, this card isn't that good for me. When I'm trying to take my deck from a 6 to a 7 or from a 6.5 or whatever, maybe a low 7 to a mid 7 or even a high 7 or whatever you want to call it, more competitively casual or more highly competitively casual, whatever you want to call it, that sort of power level, where, like things are really starting to cook and happen, and whatnot within, a few minutes of the game, rather than a few hours into the game, or whatnot, whatever, like then you're looking at cards going, okay, yes, Cultivate and Kadama's Reach are decent, okay cards or whatever, but they're not as good as these other cards because, they're more expensive in terms of CMC. Yes, they do a little bit more in terms of like value for the card's sake, but realistically, if I'm trying to get this deck to hum as fast and as quick as possible, I really don't need that extra effect. I just need mana here and now, and I need to get my value out of the cards that I'm playing right here and right now. And I get that that's kind of why a few people actually play Mana Rocks in green, is because, again, it's so powerful just to go Soul Ring into Arcane Signet or whatever, or any 2-drop Mana Rock, and then go from there. Even especially if you've got another ramp spell or whatever, you're just off to the races. But that's why, like in CDH and things like that, they use a lot of Mana Dorks and things like that. Or I think they actually don't do that as much anymore. But again, they do that a little bit, because like it doesn't matter that much. You just need ramp, and you just need ramp now. Like, you need to get out on the board, the pressure's on, you need all the cheap, efficient ramp sources that you can get. So it's a completely different thing, but I'm not really talking about that ever. I talk about it in the fringe circumstances, like I just said there, basically. Like, that's a fringe circumstance. Realistically, I don't talk about it as part of what we're actually talking about. I tell you, hey, it's a completely different beast, and I don't even know everything about it, because I don't follow it. I don't understand it, and I won't understand it because I don't follow it, and I have no interest to follow it. That's the way I want to play. I don't want to play in that way. That's me. That's it. If you guys want to play that way, then that's all fine and dandy. I know there are several CDH channels out there, and I know they're quite popular. So if you want that kind of advice, go and talk to those guys, or go and watch what those guys have to say. Again, I am always saying you can play whatever power level that you want. For the most part, I don't get why people play, truly jank decks, and whatnot, and I don't really get why people play CDH either. But that's, I do get it, but I don't get it really. Like, I get that they just want to win, essentially, but essentially I don't really get it. Like, I don't see that's, like, to my perspective, it just doesn't do anything for me. Like, if I win in the game, yeah, sure, I won, woo, cool, wow, go me, that was fun, whatever. But if somebody else wins in a cool and interesting way, or has a really fun, cool, interesting deck, and I go, oh wow, they have a really cool deck, I wouldn't mind playing against it again. Oh, here they are again, a couple of weeks later or whatever. Some people are also just like really cool people to play with. So you're just like, oh man, we're here talking about anime or whatever else, or some random movie or something or whatever, whatnot, or whatever. And like, we're just having a conversation and enjoying it and having fun, being friends and all that. That's like the cool thing about it. But anyway, as I say, those are the side benefits, again, of just like, there's no real pressure. No one, like, no one's gonna be like too, like, adherent to too much stuff. Like, like, there are times when it's like, hey, Steve, it's been your turn for about 5 minutes. What are you doing? Sucking someone's ding dong, or like whatever. You know, quick, pay attention to the game and what's going on, and whatnot. Um, but things do happen like that, especially like I'm gonna do this soon, but and sort of explain a little bit more why the early turns of the game really not much happens and whatnot. Um, so it's one of those things, like you need to pay attention, even if you're just like slightly paying attention. You need to know what's going on and whatnot, whose turn it is, what they're doing. Are they going to combat? Okay, cool. Are they going to attack me? Whatnot, all that stuff. But whatever, that is stuff for another video. But anyway, I think, again, getting to the point of saying what we're on about here, you know, um, we all want to play this game and we all want to have fun playing this game. I can only offer the advice that I can, offer to people, and I don't know every single thing, but I do have played this game for quite a while, and I know a lot of people that, haven't played it for as long as I have, or don't know every single card that I know about. I know about a lot of cards. I know how certain cards and combos and whatnot work, but I don't really care to know how they work, sort of, or whatever. I don't really care. Like, that's just not the way that I play again, but that's not really the point. But anyway, as I say, like, the content that I want to create is always positive content in a sense. Like, I don't want to create content that makes people feel bad about what they're doing or what they're playing or whatever. I want people to be like, yes, sure, Temple of the False God is not the best card in my deck because, again, whatever, I'm not playing that many lands and it's not going to be on all the time. If I happen to get it on, woo, go me, but I'm not reliant on it being, on all the time. That's the problem with cards like that, is they're not on all the time. And it's just like budget Sol Ring, I guess, kind of. People put it into their deck to be like, I have an extra Sol Ring in my deck. I don't really, but I kind of do. But again, it's like those times when it's just not doing anything and you can't do anything with it is the point at which you go, yes, this card is a bit of a mistake in this deck because, again, I don't have enough lands and I don't have, a lot of ways to ramp for lands or whatnot, or get more lands into play, that quickly. Yes, maybe later on it'll be on and it'll be active, but it won't make up for all the mana and all the time and all the turns that I missed or whatever. I want to change that to being like, right, okay, cool. Yes, that is all true and that is all a fact, but what can I do to mitigate it, or what can I do to, change tactics? Where can I, get a land that is still a budget land, is still a decent land, and offers me some additional value and whatnot, but, enters untapped, is hard to get a lot of the time with a lot of these cards because they try to balance these things, and they tried to balance these things because they were putting these things through standard most of the time, so they didn't want to give anything too OP to standard or to modern or whatnot. So that's the thing as well. A lot of cards were, traditionally balanced for standard, balanced for modern, balanced for legacy, and all these other formats, as if they ever really balanced for standard in the last 4 years or so, or whatever it is. But, like, they quote unquote do balance for that format mostly. They try to keep things at a certain power level for the most part, except for green and blue, apparently, which never fit into this. But anyway, again, when they've only really been printing made for Commander cards for the last few years, and again, like, the design space has changed a lot and is still changing a lot. I think that the mindset has to change to that, new vision. We can't just be sitting here. Well, we can sit here to criticize, but it has to be constructive. Like, that's the point of another thing that I want to say is that anything that I ever say that is like negative is not to be like poo poo or boo or, you know, whatever, or hurt anyone's feelings that, worked hard on a card. But when you look at it in the setting of this, and that's probably the problem again, is that we have to look at from the EDH perspective, and from a standard perspective or whatnot, whatever. These cards might be a bit better, they might not be, but again, like, I'm not going to go into that format either. So, but that's just the way it is. Like, even saying like something I said about Taurens when it came out, I was still like, dude, I think I might want to build this deck after a bit, because I was like, actually, this seems pretty cool, to me at least, like, because that's what I want to do. I just want to play tokens and go aggro. But to people who actually like play more powerful decks, it's not that interesting. To people who play more janky decks, it's like, well, that's too strong, like, so it's sort of in that ground where it's fairly janky. It's probably more powerful than my Squirrel deck, though. But, again, it only has so much power because it's a token deck that relies on having a whole bunch of 1 or 2, maybe 3 power creatures or whatnot for the most part on the battlefield for several turns, and anything can disrupt it pretty easily. Once anything gets neg one, well, probably most of your stuff is dead, and you're probably not going to be able to come back from that very easily, for the most part, especially if it's a permanent neg one, things like that. But anyway, that's not really the point again, for the most part. But again, when I'm saying things about these different things and whatnot, I want to put that in the best frame that I can, so that it takes someone from the point of saying, okay, sure, this isn't the most powerful thing that I could be doing, but it's the thing I want to be doing because it seems fun to me. What's the best way I can take this commander? Maybe there isn't that good of a way to take this commander. Maybe there's no real way to take this commander or whatnot, because the way it works just won't work for EDH. The way it's been formatted or done or designed just doesn't offer enough for anyone really to do much with it. Maybe there's one really weird deck that it could go into and it'd be actually useful. Especially like, I remember the last two Azorius commanders were very, very poor commanders. They're weird, very weird commanders that basically they want to be in your graveyard. One of them actually puts themselves in your graveyard or whatnot when it attacks or whatever, when it blocks or whatever, when it gets into combat. The other one, you basically got to find a way to get it in your graveyard, and then it'll do something once you transform it or whatever. They just don't really do enough, and there's just not enough to really build around. Plus, again, they're not, once they're on their enchantment or transform side, they're not your commander anymore, so that when you're hitting somebody with your enchant commander or whatever it is, it's not commander damage. So it's just all these weird things. Like, if it's on a mutate or whatnot, things like this. Like, there's so many weird little interactions. But anyway, like, again, yeah, that's the way I want to do things from now on. I want to make things so that people can, just better themselves, and I can better what I do through bettering. I can better myself by doing things better, and I can help you guys better yourselves with that as well. So that's what I'm really looking for. But anyway, I hope it's pretty clear what I'm sort of dyslexiaing myself through here, trying to explain. But yeah, like, that's just the way it is sometimes. So yeah, but you guys can let me know what you think. Write your thoughts down there in the comments below if you want to. I'll be sure to try to respond to any and all comments. I enjoyed discussing all these geeky, fun things with you guys, and you guys seem to enjoy it and whatnot. So, yeah, I'll definitely see you down there in the comments below, or I'll see you in the next one. Hey, you've just finished watching one of our videos. A bunch of other videos are popping up on your screen now for you to check out, so why not check them out?